wanted to get on here and let y'all know that is not, I seen it when I woke up this morning. I said, ooh, child, 3 in one day? That had to come from the Caucasus. Had to come from his daddy's side. You know, and I told his daddy when I had him, I said, if you put any of that gentleman spirit on my son, I'm going to rebuke you one day. He better be glad I like him, and I'm not going to blame him. And I'm going to hold my own son accountable like y'all say I don't do. But Jonathan, you're going to have to pick one. Okay? I don't give a fuck. Toss a coin, flip a penny, nigga. Pick one. Anyone. Okay? Filipino, Mexican, albino, I don't give a fuck. Pick one. God damn, you about to drive us all crazy.
The internet didn't wake up ready for this, but chaos doesn't ask for permission. Because in a span shorter than most people's lunch break, Blueface managed to turn one day into a full-blown relationship relay race. Jaidyn, Angela, Nevaeh, same day, same timeline, same audacity. And just when people were trying to figure out how that math even works, Karlissa stepped in and said what everyone else was thinking out loud. No filters, no sugarcoating, no pretending this was normal behavior. This wasn't gossip. This felt like something that slipped out before it could be cleaned up. A mother watching the timeline spin out of control in real time. Fans froze. Comment sections combusted. Because this wasn't just messy, this was reckless efficiency. The kind of juggling act that makes reality TV look scripted and soap operas look underwritten. People weren't even mad at first, they were confused. How do you emotionally clock in for 3 different women in one day and still have time to breathe? And Karlissa's reaction. That's what turned curiosity into controversy. Because when a parent starts speaking publicly, it stops being entertainment and starts feeling like a warning. This wasn't shade, this was concern wrapped in disbelief. And once she spoke, the internet realized this wasn't just a love triangle. It was a full-blown timeline collapse, and the fallout was only getting started. For anyone who's been watching the Blueface universe for more than 5 minutes, chaos is expected. It's practically part of the branding. But even by his standards, this situation felt like he cranked the mess dial past the red line and snapped it clean off. One day, 24 hours, 3 women, Jaidyn, Angela, Nevaeh, and the timeline didn't even get a courtesy warning. People logged on thinking it was a normal scroll day and instead walked into what looked like relationship speedrunning. No breaks, no transitions, no explanation. Just boom, 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 new sighting, new clip, new name. At first, fans thought it had to be exaggerated. Maybe timelines overlapped. Maybe people were reaching. Maybe the internet was doing what it does best and turning coincidence into conspiracy. But the more clips surfaced, the more receipts stacked up. And suddenly, this wasn't speculation anymore. This was coordination, or chaos, or both. And just when the internet was trying to figure out how one human being could emotionally juggle 3 different situations in a single rotation of the earth, Karlissa spoke. That's when the temperature changed, because Karlissa doesn't talk like a commentator. She talks like a mother who has seen this movie too many times and knows exactly how it ends. Her tone wasn't playful. It wasn't chasing clout. It wasn't gossip girlfriend energy. It was that mix of frustration, disbelief, and are you serious right now? That instantly made people lean in. When she addressed Blueface being with Jaidyn, Angela, and Nevaeh in the same day, it didn't feel like commentary, it felt like intervention energy slipping into the public timeline. And that's what made this moment different from the usual Blueface drama cycle. This wasn't just outsiders reacting. This was someone close enough to see the pattern, tired enough to say something, and bold enough to say it publicly. The internet heard that and immediately understood something was off. Because when families start speaking out, it usually means the behind-the-scenes version is worse than what we're seeing. To understand why Karlissa's words hit so hard, you have to look at the history. Blueface's relationships have never been quiet. They've been loud, overlapping, emotional, and heavily documented. Fans are used to seeing timelines collide. But even chaos has rules. Even mess has rhythm. This situation felt different because it wasn't just overlapping relationships. It was the speed and the lack of discretion. There was no pause between narratives. No attempt to keep things separate. Everything bled together in real time, like someone scrolling through their own life without closing any tabs. Jaidyn alone already comes with history, context, emotions, and unresolved tension. Angela brings her own storyline, expectations, and public perception. Nevaeh adds another layer entirely. These aren't random names. These are people with real emotional weight attached to them. Seeing all three appear in the same day didn't just look messy, it looked careless. And that's exactly where Karlissa's reaction landed. She didn't frame it as entertainment. She framed it as concern, as confusion, as something that didn't make sense for anyone involved. Her words cut through the jokes because she wasn't speaking as a fan or critic. She was speaking as someone watching a pattern spiral faster instead of slowing down. And once she said it out loud, the internet stopped laughing as hard. The comment sections shifted. At first, people were joking about stamina, about calendars, about needing Google Maps just to keep track. But after Karlissa spoke, the jokes started sharing space with serious questions. How is this affecting the women involved? What kind of message does this send? Is this about control, attention, or just complete disregard? And the biggest question of all, who's actually winning in this situation? The tension came from realizing that nobody seemed to be benefiting except the spectacle itself. The timeline was entertained, sure, but entertainment started feeling uncomfortable. Because when relationships turn into content at this scale, someone always pays for it emotionally. And Karlissa's tone suggested she knew exactly who usually does. What made her speaking out even more impactful was the timing. She didn't wait for damage control. She didn't wait for the narrative to settle. She spoke while the chaos was still unfolding, while clips were still being uploaded, while fans were still trying to piece together the order of events. That immediacy made it feel like she was reacting in real time, not rehearsing a response. And real-time reactions carry a different weight. They feel less filtered, more honest, more urgent. The internet immediately split into camps. One side laughed it off, saying this is just Blueface being Blueface. Nothing new, nothing shocking. The other side started questioning whether this was going too far even for him. And in the middle were people who didn't know whether to joke or worrying. Because when a situation stops being funny depends entirely on who's speaking. And Karlissa's speaking shifted the mood. Her comments reframed the entire day. What looked like chaotic flexing suddenly looked like instability. What looked like confidence started looking like impulse. And what looked like control started looking like someone losing it. That's the power of perspective. She didn't add new facts, she changed how the facts felt. By the end of the first wave, the story wasn't just Blueface with 3 women in one day. It became why is this happening? And who's checking him? The scandal deepened because now it wasn't just about his actions. It was about the absence of boundaries, about the lack of pause, about the ripple effect on everyone connected to him. And once those questions entered the conversation, the drama stops being surface level. This wasn't the explosion yet. This was the moment people realized something bigger was brewing. Karlissa didn't just comment, she cracked the door open. And once that door opens, the internet doesn't gently peek inside. It kicks it down. Once Karlissa cracked that door, the internet didn't walk through it. It stormed in like it was late to a meeting. This is the phase where chaos turns cinematic, where the jokes sharpen, the theories multiply, and the timeline starts treating real people like characters in a binge-worthy series. The moment her words hit, the tone shifted from "this is wild" to "this is actually concerning." And that's when things escalated fast. Memes exploded immediately. Because the internet copes with discomfort by laughing louder than necessary. Calendars were edited with 3 names crammed into 1 square. Stopwatch jokes popped up asking how much emotional energy fits into 24 hours. People compared Blueface's schedule to a fast food drive-thru order up. Next, keep it moving. And while it was funny on the surface, the undertone was ruthless. The jokes weren't just mocking the behavior. They were highlighting how mechanical it all looked. Less romance, more rotation. But what really pushed this into overdrive was how other people started reacting without actually reacting. That's when you know a story has weight. Subtle likes appeared on shady posts. Retweets landed at suspiciously perfect times. Cryptic captions about boundaries, respect, and knowing your worth floated across timelines like indirect smoke signals. Nobody wanted to call it out directly, but nobody wanted to stay silent either. And silence, at that moment, felt loud. The conversation expanded beyond Blueface almost instantly. People started questioning the culture around him. The way chaos gets rewarded. The way mess turns into engagement. The way attention becomes currency. Even when it's destructive. Fans pointed out that this wasn't just about one man's choices. It was about how the internet encourages escalation. Each dramatic move gets more views, more comments, more relevance. And suddenly the question wasn't why would he do this? It became why wouldn't he when the system rewards it. Karlissa's comments kept echoing in the background as the moral anchor of the discussion. She didn't yell. She didn't exaggerate. That's what made it powerful. Her tone suggested exhaustion, not shock. Like this wasn't new behavior, just a new level. And that distinction mattered. Because if this is escalation, then what comes next? That's the thought that started creeping into people's minds. Not amusement, not disbelief. Not amusement, not disbelief. Anticipation mixed with concern. Wild analogies started flooding the timeline because outrage needs creativity to stay alive. People said this was like juggling 3 open flames and acting surprised when something catches fire. Like trying to spin 3 plates on one stick and pretending balance isn't about to fail. Like binge-watching 3 shows at once and then wondering why none of the plots make sense. Each comparison chipped away at the idea that this was harmless fun. Supporters tried to defend it as grown adult behavior. They're all consenting. Everyone knows what it is. This isn't new. But those defenses didn't land the same once Karlissa spoke. Because consent doesn't cancel impact. And familiarity doesn't make chaos healthy. The argument shifted from legality to responsibility. From freedom to consequences. And once a conversation moves there, it stops being funny. The women involved became a focal point too. People started asking uncomfortable questions. How does this feel on their end? Are they aware of the overlap? Are they choosing this or adapting to it? The internet has a bad habit of centering the spectacle and forgetting the emotional weight carried by the people inside it. But this time, Karlissa's presence kept dragging the focus back to reality. This wasn't a storyline, it was people's lives colliding in public. The outrage didn't peak loudly. It simmered. The comments grew colder. Less laughing emojis, more side-eye. Less jokes, more judgment. And that shift is dangerous because cold judgment sticks longer than hot anger. Anger burns out. Judgment settles in. Then came the rewatches and the timeline reconstructions. People started piecing together exact hours, exact locations, exact sequences. What happened first? Who was seen where? When posts went up? When stories disappeared? The internet turned into a forensic lab fueled by caffeine and curiosity. And the more people mapped it out, the worse it looked. Not because it was illegal, but because it felt deliberate. By the end of this phase, the narrative had completely transformed. This was no longer just about a messy day. It became a symbol of excess, of disregard, of someone moving so fast they weren't stopping to consider the wreckage left behind. Karlissa didn't need to say more. The internet finished the sentence for her. By the time the jokes slowed down and the memes stopped multiplying, the real consequences began to surface, the quiet kind. This is the stage of every scandal people underestimate because it doesn't trend as loudly. No viral screaming. No fresh clips every hour. Just a noticeable shift in how people talk, react, and engage. Blueface didn't lose attention. If anything, I stayed glued. But attention without trust is a dangerous currency. And this moment chipped away at something deeper than reputation. It chipped away at stability. The first thing that changed was how people framed him. Before, the chaos was almost expected, even entertaining. He was seen as reckless but confident, messy but in control. After Karlissa spoke, that perception cracked. The word control started disappearing from the conversation. In its place came words like impulsive, careless, spiraling. And once the narrative shifts from wild to unstable, the tone hardens. Fans don't just watch differently, they judge differently. Karlissa's role in this fallout can't be overstated. She didn't escalate the drama. She didn't exaggerate the facts. She simply acknowledged the pattern. And sometimes that's more damaging than an accusation. Because patterns are harder to argue against than moments. Her words didn't feel like a one-off reaction. They felt like accumulated frustration finally reaching the surface. And when a parent reaches that point publicly, people listen in a different way. The women involved didn't escape the ripple effect either. Online speculation intensified around their roles, their awareness, their boundaries. Some people blamed them unfairly. Others defended them fiercely. But what became obvious was that none of them were benefiting from the overlap in the way the spectacle suggested. The situation didn't look empowering. It looked exhausting. And the internet, for all its cruelty, can sense emotional imbalance when it lingers long enough. This is where the fallout turned from entertainment into consequence. Not legal, not official, social, emotional, reputational, the kind that quietly closes doors without ever announcing why. Brands don't need scandals to walk away, they just need unpredictability. And this moment amplified that unpredictability. Not because of infidelity rumors or relationship drama, but because it raised a bigger question. Who's steering this ship? Relationships around Blueface began to feel more conditional. Allies stayed quieter. Commentary softened. Not because people suddenly disapproved publicly, but because neutrality became safer than association. When chaos feels unmanaged, distance becomes a form of self-protection. And that distance doesn't come with headlines, it comes with silence. What made this linger was the absence of any grounding response. No acknowledgement, no pause, no recalibration. The chaos moved on like nothing happened, which only reinforced the concerns Karlissa raised. Because when behavior escalates without reflection, it stops looking like personality and starts looking like trajectory. And trajectory is what people worrying about. Fans didn't cancel him. They didn't organize boycotts or demand apologies. They recalibrated. Expectations dropped. Surprise faded. The shock factor wore off and was replaced by resignation. Comments shifted from "this is crazy" to "this is sad." And sadness online is far more permanent than outrage. Outrage burns hot and disappears. Sadness sticks and rewrites narratives. This moment also reframed future behavior. Every new appearance, every new relationship rumor, every new clip will now be viewed through this lens. The day everything overlapped. The day boundaries disappeared. The day Karlissa spoke. That context doesn't fade, it follows. And that's how reputations change without anyone ever officially saying they have. The biggest consequence wasn't backlash. It was the loss of mystery. Once people feel they've seen the pattern clearly, intrigue disappears. And intrigue is what keeps chaos entertaining instead of uncomfortable. Without it, the spectacle starts feeling repetitive, predictable, less shocking. And when shock fades, relevance has to work harder to survive. This didn't end Blueface's story. It didn't even slow it down immediately, but it added weight. It made the chaos heavier to carry. And it signaled something the internet always notices: eventually escalation without reflection doesn't end well. It just gets louder until something breaks. Karlissa didn't predict the ending. She didn't dramatize it. She simply highlighted the speed. And sometimes speed is the warning. Because when everything happens too fast, there's no room to correct course, no space to breathe, no time to notice the damage piling up behind you. this wasn't a climax. It was a checkpoint, a moment that changed how the audience watches from here on out. Less amused, more alert, waiting to see if the pattern continues or finally collapses under its own weight. If you stayed with this story until the end, that tells me you weren't here just for the jokes. You were here to understand what this really says about the situation. Because this wasn't just about one chaotic day. It was about patterns, speed, and what happens when boundaries disappear in real time. Now it's your turn. Was Karlissa right to speak up, or should this have stayed behind closed doors? Was this reckless behavior, or just the internet overreacting to something that's been normalized for too long? Don't hold back in the comments. Say it how you'd say it in real life. And while you're here, smash that like button like it personally disrespected your timeline, because the algorithm only listens when engagement gets loud. Every like pushes this conversation further, and trust me, this one isn't done yet. If you haven't subscribed, handle that immediately. This channel doesn't wait for apologies or cleanup statements. We break down the chaos as it's unfolding, not after it's been edited for damage control. Turn notifications on too, because scandals don't follow schedules. One messy moment turns into a full-blown spiral overnight. And if you blink, you miss the context. This is where patterns get exposed, behavior gets questioned, and the real consequences come into focus. This story isn't over. Every move from here on out will be measured against this moment. Every new clip will be watched differently. Every relationship rumor will carry extra weight. The timeline never forgets. It just waits not, so stay locked in. Stay critical. Stay watching closely. Because when the next flaw shows itself, you already know where it's breaking first. Fame flaws. You know where it's breaking first. Fame flaws.